Over to you, Sriram.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Good evening. I don't see Milind in camera. Milind, can you come on camera, please? Great. While Milind is coming shortly, wonderful topic, Lakshmi. The Allyship Alchemy. Thank you, Milind. Allyship Alchemy. I'm sure the delegates know what allyship is, and I would request all the delegates to put it in the chat as to what do you think is allyship while I speak, right? So allyship refers to actions, behaviors, practices that individuals take to support and advocate for others, particularly to those who don't share the same social identity groups. It's about using one's privilege to amplify the voices and experiences of marginalized communities. Alchemy, you should see the context of allyship. Alchemy can be seen as a metaphor for the journey of transformation, right? It implies a process of changing oneself and one's action to become a more effective and impactful ally. I think Venki said it in his keynote address beautifully. He says, I see you, I hear you, and I am with you, right? So allyship is more than a support. It's commitment to action in the journey towards building truly inclusive workplaces. Allies play a crucial role in unheard voices, challenging biases, and actively shaping workplace cultures. This is what we heard from all the panelists, and Ripa spoke about it extensively. But true ally demands courage, continuous learning, and willingness to use the privilege. All of us have the privilege, but do we use our privilege for meaningful change? So this esteemed panel is going to bring together. We have leaders who have embraced allyship, not as a passive stance, but as a responsibility. They will share their personal journeys of recognizing biases, standing up for equity, influencing policies that go beyond performative justice. Through their experiences, we'll explore the nuance of allyship in the workplace. Three things: how to be effective without overshadowing, how to navigate discomfort, how to ensure that advocacy translates into lasting impact. So it's all about doing it right. So thank you, dear panelists, Anjali, National Head of Sales, HR Head Carlsberg. Welcome to the panel. Milind, Director DEA, Lead NatWest Group, and Deepthi, Executive Director HR, Cushman and Wakefield. And thank you all for joining. So let me go straight to Milind. Milind is formerly leading DEI, and I'm sure there are challenging circumstances, business decisions where you have, as you have faced in the leadership. And how do you navigate through, Milind, and what are the challenges you faced, and how do you navigate? Over to you, Milind.
Thank you, Sriram, and welcome everyone who's listening into the panel session today. I'm honored and privileged actually to be part of this group today. I won't really go into in terms of the challenges because they do hit me hard, to be honest with you. But what I would focus on is how do I row in these troubled waters. And my response to that, when I look back into my journey in various domains of leading risk teams, finance teams, and then recently into the DEI lead role, is what helped me significantly to row in troubled waters was data-driven approach. It's very it was very easy for me to get a bit more emotional about something which I'm passionate and I believe in. However, to keep emotions aside and actually look at a data-driven approach helped me actually address that in a much more, in a much more commercial sense in terms of what does it mean. In terms of, if I take an example, what's the data telling us from our employee voices? What's the minority group telling us? What's the need like? And how was that informing our policies and procedures? So you can, take it to that level of, kind of more of an organizational embedding aspect of it, which becomes much more powerful as well. And then that comes in the second point in terms of most of the challenging conversations at the business decision table, I really find results in an opportunity in terms of opportunity to strengthen our framework, strengthen our tools, which eventually will avoid those conversations again happening because they are built in or baked in the framework. So just to give an example, when we were listening into the last speaker in terms of our abilities to bring in more diverse talent pool, do we have inclusive interviewing processes in place? And how do we make sure that the frameworks are actually embedded in that manner that, the results, the diversity becomes more of a result because of a very strong framework already baked in, Sriram.
Right. Thank you, Milan. A great point you made about the data and presenting the data. And presenting the data within is more important. Outside data is always there with you. But one question to you, Milan, is when you present this data to the leadership team, is there a complete buy-in, or there are somebody doubting this or skeptical about things? Milan, what have you faced?
So there is, you would find in the room as expected, right? There would be active bystanders as well. There would be passive people. There would be neutral as well on the ground. And I think, the positioning of the data-driven approach is very important. Given, and potentially, kind of what I really benefit from is coming from business is to not look at, and we heard it in the previous sessions as well, not look at it as an HR problem or a people function problem. So for that, what matters is, am I really understanding the needs of my businesses and then come back and present it? So eventually, yes, I do look forward to having those allies, in those business decision table, to be honest with you, Sriram. But at the same time, some of the tools which I do use is called objections clinic, what if clinics, and understand what could potentially come up as well, and how am I going to respond that as well? Because my purpose is very clear when I'm going in there. But how am I able to, kind of turn the dial and get the conversation going and not really stuck into where it is kind of a space? I think understanding business needs, understanding business problem, and how DEI solves that or propels us in that direction is where I look at it.
Fantastic. I think very well said. You brought in a beautiful point of bystander, right? We all say that as an ally, a true ally is an upstander, not a bystander. And many problems arise that a lot of bystanders, maybe your colleague, where you don't want to sort of speak out, he's your friend or she's your friend, you don't want to speak out, that's where the problem arises. Great. Thank you for sharing, Milan. Anjali, I'll go to you next. You and I share the same industry, the Alchemy industry. I worked there for 30 plus years. Huge challenges with regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We want you to share your experiences in leading the DA agenda, and you are working in sales HR, which is even more difficult, pretending sales, right? Some insights into creating awareness around inclusion, and how did you build allyship, the agenda? I heard that when I spoke to you, I heard that you are 50% in key accounts, but not great in sales. But how did you build up the agenda? You've done a wonderful job in Carlsberg. So please share it for the benefit of the audience.
Yeah, Sriram, thank you so much for that question. I'm excited to be here. Having been from the industry, I think you'll understand this very well. The primary challenge that we face really in the alcohol industry is the legacy of the industry itself, right? It's been primarily male dominated, not just from a manufacturing perspective or sales perspective, or the fact that, at the point of sale, it is men. And for a woman to come into this environment, there's family issues, maybe their partners don't want them to join, the parents have doubts about it, safety issues may be there, they're concerned about that entire piece. And the fact that in the Indian society, which I realized later, because I have not faced it personally, is that whether to join an organization or not is actually a family discussion in a lot of families, right? And that's something that I realized when I came to Carlsberg myself. So when we started our D&I journey I think seriously put our effort into it was about 4 years ago. And of course we did the right things. We put the house in order. We looked at our policies from an inclusive perspective and so on. And we did all of that with our commitment from the leadership and buy-in. Very soon, Sriram, what we realized is we were interviewing candidates for women in sales, because primarily that's my role. And then I also lead the D&I agenda. So we started with sales, and there was no talent pool, quite frankly, ready. There are women in sales in other organizations, FMCG, etc., but not really hardcore alcobev. So we had to very quickly change tack and look at other industries that could kind of fit in. So telecom was one, pharma was another one, because they have a large distribution base and so on. And then there was another challenge that we realized is the colleagues interviewing were all men. because we didn't have women in the sales organization, right? So I had a lot of colleagues come back and tell me, and my male colleagues saying, the candidates we find don't feel entirely comfortable because they don't see a woman on the table. And I said, okay, I'm happy to sit in and have a conversation. So we had to change that to say that, okay, I'm not gonna interview you, but I'm gonna have a conversation with you. And I understand as a woman, it's important that you see a lady who's senior, who's there in the organization, and who's willing to make that effort to talk about the culture and why it is that you should join this place. Because I'm thoroughly convinced that my organization is a great place to be in, right? The fact that we, like you rightly pointed out, in key accounts, that's the more glamorous side of the world. We have about now 50% women there, but they face their own challenges, right? Because they're working late into the night, the events are late in the evening. There have been instances where customers and I would say the clients that we go to, they have made passes at our colleagues. And how do you handle it? So that's where you come together as an organization and stand up and say that, hey, we're going to support our colleague come what may. If it means business loss, fair enough. But we've had male colleagues, senior male colleagues go down, talk to their leadership and say this is not acceptable to us. Okay. Our world is evolving and so should yours. Right. So I think what has worked for us in terms of the allyship and the inclusion journey is to really partner with both the male and the women colleagues in our organization and have these very open conversations and say, what is the kind of support system needed? Why is that support system needed? And we've had men coming out and telling us, okay, if you're going to give them cabs to come back in the night, do you expect us to go in the cab with them? And we were like, do you think it's the right thing to do? And they said, maybe it may make it uncomfortable for them at their homes, right? So they're also thinking about how do we make sure that it's safe, psychological safe for them? Because at the end of the day, our commitment when we talk about our growth culture principles in the organization focus around three things. It's dignity, respect, and compassion. And I'm so happy that where we are today, we're actually starting to make that shift in the way we're all thinking. We have allies at the workplace. We have men who are standing up for our women colleagues. And where we're getting to is that, inclusion and belonging is not something that we want to see just as a value, right? We want it to be a regular part of the way that we work. Yeah. And my last point, Sriram, that I'd like to make to maybe women here, and if you know women who are in sales, is join the industry, right? It's a great place to start, get your hands dirty, learn the work, take the challenge, take that leap of faith, okay? Because I love where I am, and I know you guys can make a massive, massive impact on where you are today.
I think through your heart, I think you spoke very well, actually, the struggles you had. But tell me, did you create any sort of role models, or you had really make an effort in creating mentors or role models, or it came automatically when you're trying to set this?
So it's twofold. We did have to obviously make an effort. We ran allyship programs for senior leaders to go through. We've run inclusive leadership programs. We've also very consciously gone and hired women at senior leadership roles. So like when I had joined, I was probably the only one at my level, right? But we now have a head of HR who's a lady. We have a sales head who's a lady. We have a brewery head who's a lady. So, it's like the boomerang effect. It's starting to pick up. Yeah. And that's where we are. So let's see where we go. Yeah.
And there are not 140 odd people listening to you, Anjali. You're going to be flooded with CDs. Don't worry.
I'm very happy for that to happen. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, Dipti, you work in a totally different industry, right? And as Anjali said about male-dominated, real estate infrastructure is traditionally male-dominated. Now, can you reflect on a time you stood up? I think I'm sure you have to make a lot of effort as an ally, whether for a junior colleague or a systematic issue, and what they taught you about influencing culture from within, rather than bringing from somebody from outside and doing. How did you stand up and how did you make that happen, Market?
All right. Thanks, Sriram, for bringing me in. And before I start, I want to say cheers to you, Anjali, like a literal cheers to you. So
I don't have a bottle here, but cheers to you.
yeah, I know.
I could do that as well.
So yeah, so while I could really sorts of empathize and relate to what Anjali was saying. I come from an industry wherein the brokers forget about being women, right? The brokers
Yeah.
weren't even looked at as like professional degree sorts of hard-coated, booted, suited people some time back, right? So brokers were our next door neighbors, people who would go show you the house, etc., and probably whatever. So when I kind of joined Cushman Wakefield a few years back and I understood the IPC industry, that's when you understand the largeness of the business model. You understand what this is all about, that this is, what you see is the unorganized industry where you have kind of grown seeing them, but what lies is a whole sorts of gamut of what goes behind that, right? So
Yeah.
it's actually a consulting industry in real estate is what I tell at least my relatives and my family, because it's difficult to sorts of also make them understand where you are working. Of course, now being a global setup, people in India and across the globe, they know the brand well. um, Also, just on a lighter note, I think I am in a habit of telling them these uh, simpler terms for my organization. So my last organization was Aircel. This was like almost about a decade back,
Yeah.
and my the whole of the family thought that I work with Airtel and misspell it as Aircel. So I
Okay.
actually had to tell them, no, it is really
Yes.
this player called Aircel. So
Right.
I think I'm in a habit of giving them the right piece of information.
Right.
So yeah, so when I came into real estate, even I thought, Sriram, that it's a very sorts of a specific gender dominant
Right.
industry. But here I come in, and in just about 6 to 8 months, I see the first, global IPC CEO being a woman. So
Wow.
we have Michelle McKay, who's like, leading it globally from US, doing everything right, making the organization leaping forward, and being that figurative woman who's doing it all by herself, right? And then the second, I think, and this is for Milan, a very data-oriented number that I have is that we have a very gender equitable board. So we
Wow.
have like equal number of women and men on the board. So that gives you a lot of confidence, that gives you a lot of pride, and that gives you a lot of sorts of a future sorts of a narrative for you that where the organization is going. So I think rather than influencing, because gone are the days when you have to influence anyone in any sorts of career. Now it is all about purpose. So we don't influence anyone any longer. We just show them the purpose that this is who we are, this is what we do. And, forget about real estate. I think even the government of India and government across is talking about infrastructure, is talking about development, is talking about building, the kilometers of the road on a daily basis. And we are in that journey. We are in the nation building journey. We are not in any sorts of a real estate journey. So that, we think, we see, and we behave of the people who are a part of this whole journey of nation building and development. And that's what we do.
Fantastic, Deepti. I think it's a wonderful data you shared saying that the leadership team has equal representation of women. This is where the organization struggle, where we see that you have a fantastic number in the junior management, a sizable number in the middle management. When you go up, it reduces to less than 15 is what we research. So when we say charity begins at home, and that's what the leadership commitment is all about. And when we are creating, and when Krishnan is creating an inclusive and a sustainable place for people to work, that's where inclusion is all about. It's fantastic. Thank you for that. Milan, sorry. We always say that it's okay to be vulnerable. You create accountability. Vulnerability is being an effective ally. But can you share some examples where a showing of vulnerability has helped you to better support your colleagues or create an inclusive environment? Because it's sometimes it's taken as a negative word. Don't be vulnerable. But to be an inclusive culture, you can create the vulnerability and you say that, okay, I made a mistake. I stand for the mistake. I did that, but it didn't happen. And as a leader, you become more effective in your vulnerability. So how does it go together? Is it a counterproductive thing? Or you can cite some examples where it's better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Sriram, I think, and this is for Milan, a very data-oriented number that I have is that we have like equal number of women and men on the board. So we have like equal number of women and men on the board. So that gives you a lot of confidence, that gives you a lot of pride, and that gives you a lot of future sorts of a narrative for you that where the organization is going. So I think rather than influencing anyone in any sorts of career, we are in that journey. We are in the nation building journey. We are not in any sorts of a real estate journey. So that gives you a lot of confidence, that gives you a lot of pride, and that gives you a lot of future sorts of a narrative for you that where the organization is going. So
Thanks, Sriram. Something which is very close to my heart and actually reminds me of an Amitabh Bachchan movie. I'll not quote the line, which I'm sure all of us would remember. But we know the real world is not that, right?
Yeah.
And as just a context, NatWest is a bank in the UK, and for us, our customers go through many situations of vulnerability. So that's something which comes to us from an experience perspective in terms of how do we work through with our customers when they go through financial difficulties or any other kind of vulnerability. It could be health related, it could be various other responsibility related. So it comes in a bit naturally. And at the same time, it becomes even more interesting and even more learning, I would use the word, when you look at in a diverse workforce space, right? You look at colleagues around you. You have colleagues from LGBT community. You have colleagues who have I call it different abilities. Colleagues with disabilities as well, and so on and so forth, right? And then for each one of us, there are those moments that matter.
Right.
There are those times when kind of you really are in that vulnerable situation, and you are looking forward to a support, if I would be honest, right? So that's the context in terms of the work which we have done as an organization, or rather I have learned from within NatWest is through the customer facing and then bringing it to the colleague interface in the DI space altogether. Vulnerability, you're right. I think that's not taken in a very positive space as a word. In my mind, is actually being authentic. You feel like crying, you cry. You feel like smiling, you feel like being sad. It's okay. It's an emotion. There are two aspects to it. One, kind of separate your emotion to who you are. It's an emotion, and speak it to yourself. I think it quite helps personally in terms of to look at it more as an objective statement, to step away and create that space, and that space starts giving you a lot more kind of logical answers as well. You are absolutely right, Sriram. I have had a couple of opportunities, but I'll talk about two of them. And I'll talk first one is where I have been in a vulnerable situation, all of a sudden, not something which I had ever thought about. A caring responsibility landed onto my shoulders. With someone very close to me, going through a terminal stage illness as well. Very tough times. And as the psychology tells, right, human psychology is when you are in a vulnerable situation, you go into a protective shell.
Right.
But unfortunately, kind of that's where it is important to show up your vulnerability and not go into the shell as well. So, kind of somewhere, the reading psychology helps as well to find a medicine to deal with it. And eventually, as I said, right, I think the culture which has been built up in the organization was so conducive, where you have a psychological trust. I could speak to my leaders and actually show up my vulnerability and kind of understand what are the various options and kind of supports available within the organization as well. And that's personally for me. So I thought I'll start more with sharing in terms of how, as an individual, I experienced when I was going through a vulnerable situation. Because I believe everybody goes through some of those moments that matter, which does come once in a while in everybody's life. It also, kind of, I do reflect upon, a situation where, colleague who was reporting into me, joined back after the maternity leave, and she had an intention to quit. And I respect the decision, and I said, let's have a conversation. And when we had a conversation, my purpose was curiosity, to understand what's really happening in. Is there something I can support? There could be multiple reasons and rationales for why it was happening in terms of that intention. I would not call it a decision. I think it was more of an intention at that point in time. And what it revealed was, kind of the mindset was, looking at it more of an or approach. She was a new mother. She felt that she couldn't do a justice to both her professional professional identity, and her role as a mother. And the way, her thinking was that it's an or, approach, this or that kind of a situation. And again, that's to do with, kind of when you're vulnerable, you go into a shell, which is, I can't go out because there is something which, kind of will hurt me, will hit me hard, right? And I felt proud of the fact that one, we had the psychological trust and the comfort for her to come and speak to me rather than, kind of put down that this
Right.
is my decision. And the conversation, went on to the space of moving or shifting the mindset from an or approach to an and approach. Of letting her be aware of what are the various frameworks and tools available. We have a policy called flexi working policy, which allows part-time, variable time, work from home extensions, flexi working arrangements, a lot of options which are available, which could be availed. And that started shifting her mind to look at an and approach. And the beauty of it was that when she, kind of in a moment said that she doesn't want to lose her professional identity. And that was, kind of very powerful in terms of, coming from a colleague. And I don't think that really happened, very naturally. It was because I did share about me being an ally at home. And I think when I call it allyship, I think allyship is not something which I wear a hat when I come to office. Allyship is who I am in my life. There's no boundary between a professional and a personal life. And I have gained a lot because by being an ally at home, to be honest with you, because there are very quick returns when you are actually an ally at home. And I won't go much dwell into it, but those quick returns are very helpful in terms of boosting you, in terms that you are going in the right direction, you're going in the right space, and that, kind of drives you as well. So by sharing some of those, my own personal experiences of being an ally at home, allowed her to, kind of take that space, build that, kind of be comfortable and talk as well. And absolutely, I would, the story would not be complete unless I really, kind of call out her partner, who absolutely was an ally at home. I don't know him, but he is an ally at home, and that was very powerful. So you're right. I think vulnerability, and I would say is I don't think there will be anyone in the world who would not face vulnerability. It could be transitional, it could be situational, it could be for some moments. And what is important is speak up. What is important is raise your hand and ask for help. But that won't happen naturally unless we have an environment where you have a buddy, you have someone whom you trust upon in your system, and the best is if I'm your manager. So that's the role we have to play as a responsible.
Fantastic. Straight from your heart, very candid, and appreciate your response. I think what I quite liked about what you said is she didn't want to lose her professional identity. That was perhaps in back of her mind, but when she told you that she wants to quit, you enabled her to come out. Otherwise, the circumstances around the three M's, the marriage, the maternity, the motherhood, all that plays an important part in women's life, and you need a supportive ally like you to bring that out, and you're able to do that. And as you rightly said, you had a good partner to support her. A fantastic, wonderful. Right, so we move, Anjali, to the next topic in terms of privilege, right? So we always say privilege, you don't require to be a senior vice president or a general manager. Everybody working in an organization has it. And they have the voice to influence and to challenge the status. But what one should be mindful of is you don't overshadow the voices that aim to uplift. So you have to balance yourself as to how do you play the role. So can you share something, Anjali, in your life? How you're able to do that in your career?
Sriram, before I go there to answer your question, Milan, thank you so much for sharing. I know it's not easy to talk about these things, especially when you're in a public forum. But thank you for that. Yeah. To answer your question, Sriram, I think for me, essentially, it has been my journey has been a lot about self-reflection because, when I started on the D&I space, I realized that, looking at my colleagues and the environment is that I actually realized that I came in from a lot of privilege. Now, with that comes in a lot of responsibility as well, because there were things that were happening around me which I didn't agree with. We were trying to make a change, and the point was, how do you kind of balance that without ticking people off, or yet coming across in creating an us versus them agenda, or coming on too strong for that matter, right? Because it's the cultural bit is a journey. It's going to take time for all of us. So I think where I kind of started from was, and then I saw that kind of also trigger a lot of thought in the organization, was that, you need to be self-aware in terms of where are you coming from, and what is, or have the humility to have, understand the privilege that you have.
Yeah.
Because and irrespective of position, you can still advocate for change. You can advocate for changes in policy. You can speak up when you see something is not right, right? And to build that inclusive environment. I liked what Milan said about the fact that you should be curious, right? And being open to listening and understanding. But the real connect that I've seen that's happened across our ecosystem, okay, is really about the fact that, I see people trying to understand the personal stories without being, over intrusive, but trying to understand and connect with that personal story that we all have, right? And some may want to share, some may not want to share. But when you do that and you can be vulnerable and also share your own, that's where you're building trust and your own credibility. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think these are the three things that matter. And of course, giving a voice to someone, because someone may not be, shy. They would be shy. They may not want to share, but calling it out, asking them for their inputs, just suggesting, hey, you lead this review that's going to happen, right? So giving them the opportunity. The one thing that I have kind of realized with time is that when the cultural shift happens, change is difficult to manage, right? And disagreements would be there. Why do I need to hire a woman? Yeah. Why do I need a diversity candidate in my team? And I think we took a step back to say that you try and seek to understand what is the challenge that that person is facing, right? For a voice to come out like this. And if you can understand that concern or the challenge, then you will understand the disagreement. And if you can have that conversation with compassion, yeah, that goes a long way in building that trust. And you're able to, I guess, sort that voice out in a very even manner. So, yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I think to sum up what you said, allyship is nothing but active listening, compassion, and be empathetic. The personal story you talked about is empathy. That is where we become professionals. That is where we become, a different person when you are in the professional environment. And once you're able to do that, I think that's really fantastic. Thanks, Shakti. I'll go to you, Deepti. Milan started by saying data, right? So a lot of organizations I have seen, when you talk about something, even DEI, allyship, they talk about how do you measure success, right? So I'm sure there are ways and means, it's tangible, intangible, there are ways and means to measure the success. But some particular story or example that showcases the lasting impact of their action in promoting an inclusive workplace. Deepti?
So, Sriram, in fact, there is a very, I'll not say different, but a little bit of, a next level of definition of inclusion that I have kind of experienced in my life. And it's not because of, because of a gender or it's a part of the community or a generation, etc. It's actually the inclusion of the life choices that one makes, right? I think I'll explain that. In India, I think that's the first inclusion that needs to come in. A career break and accepting a career break has to be an inclusion, right? You sorts of not being in a corporate for all 2.5 decades, but kind of taken a leap of faith to start a new business or a venture and then failed and then want to come back is an inclusion. Do not look at you as a failure because you are not in straight shifts is an inclusion. So I think in my personal life, I have faced this fortunately, and I'll always say fortunately once or twice,
Right.
wherein I had to go and actually sell myself as a thorough professional who have done these sorts of, have taken some risks, have done some different things in my life. And now I want to probably do something different.
Right.
So I can just say after a decade of my career, straight professional, like how it was back in 2000s, etc., that you have to get out of your MBA and then you have to start your corporate life because that's the success of the measure. After 10 years, I thought that I'm going to be funky and, enough is enough. And I'm going to start something of my own. And in 6 months' time, people actually told me, a 30-year-old with not so gray hair as at this point in time, with a certain sorts of looks, how can you be doing a business consulting and be putting our money on you?
Right.
And then I think in about six months' time, I started again with corporate career.
Right.
Then the bug struck again in about 5-6 years again, and I said, "All right, now it's decade and a half. Let's try it now."
Right.
And that's when I kind of again, left corporate to start something of my own.
Okay.
Thankfully, it kind of, it reached to the sorts of milestones that I wanted it to reach. But then overarching COVID hit. Now that was God's plan, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then I said, all right, so now it's COVID, we slow down again. And after COVID sorts of finished, we said, all right, back to the corporate. And then the whole selling of me happened again, that, hey, what I was doing was material, might not be in a corporate setup, but what I was doing is the complete supply chain of asking for business, delivering business, and also doing my own collections, and that matters. So I think when people understand that, inclusions also mean this, your life choices, that's when, if you yourself experience it, you understand when you are actually managing 4,000 people, you are hiring people, you're augmenting teams, that people come with these choices. And you have to be open to listen to those choices and then make your wise choice, whether you would want them to be a part of your overall sorts of growth system or not. So that's my personal sorts of belief, and those my experiences that have shaped me in kind of now making my own choices and decisions.
Fantastic, DP. So you rediscovered yourself in different careers of your life. And then
Still doing.
Continue
to do Sriram. Continue to do Sriram.
Fantastic, fantastic. So in the paucity of time, one quick last question to all the three of you. One personal practice or mindset that has helped you from performative to transformative allyship in your personal life. What you did, what you practiced in terms of transformation. One quick last one.
For me, it will be active listening.
Active listening, right? Great.
I think for me, it will be leap of faith.
Leap of faith, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. It's one life. Just make your choices, fail some, succeed some, but do it.
Right.
I'll take a stab at it. So I think for me, it's been the fact acknowledging that I don't have all the answers, right? And that it's okay to go out and seek knowledge and ask people and clarify. So I think, that's that.
Fantastic. I think it's a wonderful panel, candid discussions from all of you. And most importantly, sharing your life experiences that I'm sure has helped the delegates. So thank you, Deepti, Milan, and Anjali for this.
Thank you so much.
I had the privilege of hosting you. Thank you very much. I had a lot to learn from you. Thank you. Over to you, Lakshmi.
Thank you.